Hi, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great day today. It's the Monday of the August long weekend, so August 5th, I think today. Yep, August 5th. And I am going to demo a mixed media technique. So some ink smushing, some splatter, making lots of texture. I believe that that's the whole what would you call it? The whole basis of mixed media. That's what you're looking for is lots of texture, different feelings to it, lots of different layers of things. So that's what I'm going to work on today. If you saw the update video that I posted the other day for the organization challenge, you'll see the card that I'm going to try and recreate. I can't show it now because I gave it to my brother. It was for his birthday. So I'm going to make an effort to kind of recreate that and we'll see how it goes. And I'm sorry, you're probably going to hear the vacuuming happening upstairs, but I kind of wanted to get this up so that we can get this on the go. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to use is I'm going to use some watercolor cardstock. This is just the stuff that I picked up from the dollar store. So it's got a kind of like a textured side here, and then it's got a smooth side. I think I'm actually going to use the textured side because sometimes when you do that, it ends up looking kind of leather-like. So I'm going to try that. I've got my non-porous surface here. So this is a glass mat, the Tim Holtz Tonic Studios glass mat. So I'm going to use that one. I'm also going to use a piece of, this is like stamp packaging. That's what I'm going to put my colors on so that I have a little bit more control over them, just to kind of see where they go and stuff like that. If you don't want to use something like this, then by all means, you can just use your non-porous surface, spread some water into it and dip your cardstock kind of thing into that. But I'm going to do this because I saw it and I really liked how it worked in that last card and things like that. The others that I'm going to be using today is I'm going to be using some distress oxides. I'm also, for this particular card, I'm also going to use a distress ink because I want it to sink in. I'm going to do some um, embossing folders, some textury stamps, things like that. So I've got four colors for this card that I'm going to use. I'm going to do Salvage Patina, Peacock Feathers, Vintage Photo, Ground Espresso. So I'm going to start with my lightest color, which is the Salvage Patina. So I'm going to start with that one first. That's going to be my base layer. You're also going to need a heating tool, right? Like, so whether you have the barrel style or the um, almost like the hair dryer style, which of course this is not a hair dryer. Please don't use it on your hair. You'll set your hair on fire. Basically, it's so hot. But you will need to be drying this in between the layers so that you can get different layers of color. So I'm going to grab my tweezers here so that I don't end up burning my fingers. I've been there, done that. Don't need to do that today. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's get started. So I've got my tweezers, got my spritzer bottle here. So let's get it going. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ink pad and I'm actually just going to smush it right onto my packaging. Here, I'm going to get some color down on my packaging. Put the lid back on. A little bit of ink on the side there. Wipe that off. Okay. And then, so you can see it here on my packaging. So maybe I'll put that on the black there. You can see it a little bit better, right? Okay. So now I'm just going to give this a little spritz, two spritzes. Now you can see where the oxides have now activated a little bit. So they kind of lighten in color. They kind of go a little bit brighter, but the water has also beaded. So my ink is now ready to start moving around. And I'm just kind of going to go in and dip and dab in different areas, kind of smooshing it down. I like the texture of the little splats, but I also like the spreading texture part as well. So now I'm going to dry this layer. So all I'm doing is dipping and dabbing, dabbing it down, nothing complicated. I'm just going to add layers of color. Now, this is going to be, because this is my lightest color, so these darker colors like the peacock feathers and the browns and stuff like that are going to go on top. So I want to add more of this salvage patina, this kind of turquoisey sea glass color. Make sure that I've got a pretty decent base layer of that. And the really cool thing, this is the awesome thing about um, distress inks and distress oxides, is that if you dry them you can start to layer. They don't necessarily reactivate. You can layer once it's dried, it's in your cardstock. And now I can add another layer of this and get like a double blitz kind of thing of that the salvage patina. And it will continue to layer. And still quite a bit of ink there actually on my palette here. So I'm just going to come in now and I'm going to spritz that into some other areas. Push it down with my fingers. Push it down and lift. Push it down and lift. And then some more over here. And I'm making sure that I'm spreading it all over the place here. Okay. So now you can see, so there's a couple of areas here where I've got salvage patina down below and then an even deeper tone of the same salvage patina because I went on top again with it. So I'm going to dry this layer here. I'm going to have to grab a baby wipe here and wipe these up. So you want to dry from the front and the back. And you definitely want to make sure that you're using watercolor cardstock for this technique because you will be adding a lot of layers, right? If it was just going to be the one layer, sure, go ahead and use a thicker basic cardstock. But for this, because we're going to be adding a lot of layers, you're definitely going to want to have definitely needs to be watercolor paper because otherwise, or cardstock or whatever, because otherwise it's just not going to be able to handle the level of moisture that we're going to be adding to it. Okay, so wiped that up. Now I want to do another layer of the distressed oxide, or it's all distressed oxide. I meant salvage patina. So I'm just going to add another layer here into my little plasticky palette or acetate palette, or actually technically it's just like some packaging, whatever. But what I like about this is that I can see, versus dipping it upside down and dragging it through, I can actually see where I want to add some more color. So it does give me that opportunity to kind of smoosh it into places that if it was upside down, I wouldn't necessarily see. So if you're somebody who likes to have a little bit more control, you might want to do it this way. On the other hand, if you have a hard time letting go, sometimes putting it face down and just letting the ink and the card do its own thing and just allowing that to be okay and just kind of working with what you get, that can be a lot of fun and pretty freeing, right? You don't have any decisions to make. That's just how my card looks. That's what it's going to be. And that's what I'm going to have to deal with. Okay, so I'm going to dry this now. That dry. And I'm going to bring this up to the camera here because I want to show you how the different levels, because I've now done 3 layers of the salvage patina, I want to show you how it's managing to layer the same tone, the same exact color on itself, but creating layers even with the same ink. Like I haven't changed colors yet. I'm still using the same ink pad of the salvage patina. So I want to show that. That's what's really cool. That's the main function of the distress inks and the distress oxides, is to be able to do this. And this is very difficult to do with another type of ink. There are some out there that will layer brilliantly, but the ones that I'm the most familiar with are the distress brands. But look at here. So this is the exact same color. I'm not sure if you can see it. So I've got salvage patina here, but look at how it's got this deep tone here. And there's almost 3 tones. So I've got this really nice kind of light bluish. I've got almost a sea glass green here. And then I get a darker tone of the blue right there. So I've got 3 different shades, all using the same ink palette. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next color now. So I'm going to wipe my palette. I'm going to wipe that down. I'm going to wipe down my glass board. Okay. And apparently I need to do the other side too, because I kind of got it all smooshy. Okay, so, all right, now, so I'm going to keep that here and I'm going to bring in the peacock feathers. So this is a deeper tone. So this is also kind of a bluey green, but this is the deeper toned one. Kind of a mid-tone-ish color. Okay, and we're going to give that a spritz. Should kind of doing this. I'm going to change my orientation of my cardstock a little bit here, and we're gonna bring this in, kind of drop it down a bit in a couple of places, pick and lift, pick and lift. So I don't want to fully saturate or fully cover this because I still want the original colors to come through from below, right? These are just, this is a beautiful color combination together. So we're just gonna dry this layer. So, and you'll get differing levels of saturation, I guess would be the phrase for it, based on how much water you add to your palette, right? So I gave it 2 spritzes. So I think I smushed my ink pad, was that 3-4 times? And then I gave it 2 spritzes. So if I'd have given it 3 or 4 spritzes of water, then obviously I would have a much more watery tone to this, right? Like to the what I've added. Or if I'd only spritzed it once, then it would be a heavier concentration of color. Okay, so I'll bring that up. Look at that. Looking so cool. All right, so I still have some ink here on my palette. You can see that on the black, on the white there. I think you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to give it another spritz here. Okay, and I'm just going to go in and dab in a few places where I don't see, where I'd like to add a little bit of the deeper tone. I want to cover all of what's below there, but I do want to add, even on top of the this is the peacock feathers. So even on top of that, I want to add some more. Go. Let's pull that in. Shoot that. Places. That. All right. And we're drying again. So this is a really good thing to remember anytime that you're watercoloring, not just when you're doing ink smooshing or using distress oxides or any of the distress ink line or anything like that. If you are using water and any kind of watercolor, you always want to dry in between layers. Whether that means, you know, if you're painting and you move on to another area, if you're wanting to add layers and tones like shades and highlights kind of thing, you want to make sure that you have dried, let that area dry before you try and add more water to it, more ink, more water, because what it does is it just leaches the color out. And it'll wash out your color more. Look at what we're getting here. So I do have a pretty big splotch, but I'm not too worried about that because, again, these are distress oxides, so I can bleach that with some water splatters, but I can also add some tones of brown to that too, so that it'll help break it up. So it's coming along really great. So I think that that's enough of the blues. So I'm going to wipe up my glass mat and my palette. So let's put that up there, and we'll wipe this guy here. Okay. Now with the browns, you do want to, again, we're going to start out because I like having the blue as my base tones. Having an entirely blue background would be great. It's easy enough to build off of. Now what we're going to do though is I'm going to add some browns, and I want to be a little bit more careful with the browns because again, it's a darker color. It's very difficult to take away, right? So far what I've done is just like a tone on tone blue. So like the salvage patina and the peacock feathers are 2 of the same sort of shades, just different tone. One's lighter, one's a mid-tone kind of thing. So I don't need to worry about that too much. It's all going to blend together. When you're doing this technique as well, if you don't want to end up with muddied colors, you also want to make sure that you're keeping your color wheel in mind, right? So if you were to mix purple and green, you're going to get a very big brown unless you're able to dry it in between. Okay. So this color here that I'm using now is Vintage Photo, and I just want to come in and I'm going to put my fingers down and kind of just touch it down in a couple of places here. Give it some splooshes, some areas, letting the plastic kind of move in certain areas. Sometimes I can put my finger down a little bit, give it some movement there. But again, this is a process that doesn't have a ton, even though I'm able to stick my fingers down and stuff like that, it's not always going to have a ton of control to it. And that's okay. That's okay. That's something to get used to or practice anyways. I don't know about you guys. I in my life in general, I like to believe or feel like I'm in control. Clearly I'm not. But sometimes it's nice to feel that way, right? Drawing now the vintage photo. So in the vintage photo is kind of it's got a bit of a green undertone to it. So that'll go nicely with the turquoise colors here that I've chosen. Yeah, nope, a couple of dry spots still here. Missed them. Missed them on this end. And a bit more. And a bit more. There we go. Oops. Right around. Okay, here's where we're at so far. I'm just going to give that a bit of a bend. Bit of a bend. Okay. And now I want to do another layer. So give it a smoochy here. And we're going to go in and just kind of swoosh it down, swoosh it down. These areas. There we go. Okay, now let's dry that. So the really cool thing about using these particular colors, I saw somebody, this is a video I watched. So Nina, she's a design team for Simon Says Stamp. I watched her video. She was doing some really beautiful mixed media, kind of utilizing these colors. And then Mindy Egan, who is also a design team member for Simon Says Stamp, had some beautiful, she just created a really beautiful one. And after watching those two, I was like, I wonder if I could actually do that. Because as I said, I've been pretty intimidated by mixed media. It seems like it's a really complicated procedure. Okay, so far, here's where we're at. I'm pretty happy with that. I'd like to add a little bit of the darker brown now. So I'm going to clean my palettes. But as I was saying, a dear friend of mine, she's passed away. It'll be a year now on Wednesday. So I was thinking of doing this and just kind of really just really on my mind. And so kind of doing this in honor of her. She loved mixed media, loved splotches and creating beautiful works of art and like people's names and things like that, and just adding layers and decoupaging and adding like texture paste and all of that kind of thing. And so that's, I've always had the idea that that's what mixed media had to be. And it doesn't necessarily need to be all of that. So this is kind of my way of dipping my toes in. So the next color here that I'm using is Ground Espresso in my outsides. So see, I've added a little bit there and I'm going to give it a spritz. Okay. And so, I always admired what she was able to do and she really just loved it. But as I said, I've been really intimidated by what I had the impression of what mixed media, meant and had to be kind of thing. And I didn't think that I could do that kind of thing. So it's, like when I started my YouTube channel and started doing videos and, who am I to be teaching these things and blah, 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 all of those things where you, have a little bit of where I had doubts about myself and what I could do. And after watching those videos, I was like, oh, I think I could actually do that. And so when I did it for that card for my brother that you may have seen in the organization challenge where I previewed it and gave you a sneak peek to what I'd be doing here today. Yeah, I ended up just having really a lot of fun. I really just suspended what my expectations of what this would be, what it needed to look like, how I thought, oh, okay, what does all of that mean and all of those kind of things. Just let it go, and I just had some fun. Okay, so you can sort of start now where we've got the lighter brown, the darker brown, and we've still got the blues all showing through. So I've got the lighter blues, and then I've got the darker blue, and then the two shades of brown. And for this one, I'm going to add a little bit more. I do want some darker tones. And give it one swoosh here. And now I'm going to touch it down into some areas. Leave my finger in and out of there. little bit. Break up some more of that blue. That there. Okay. Need some in this area. But yeah, anyway, back to the story about the mixed medium. So I really had these doubts of what I could do and you know, always making that judgment of what something has to mean or what, you know, that kind of thing. And so um after watching those videos, I was really grateful for the inspiration from those two, because it was like, yeah, actually I can do that. That I can do. That's you know, I'm not going to say it's easy, but that I can do. I can recognize those steps. I can play with them. And by just starting to play and letting myself just be like, okay, it is what it is. And just letting that be okay with that. Yeah, I ended up getting a really beautiful card that I was very happy with. Um, it was really difficult because I was giving it to my brother. It was very difficult to keep it kind of, I mean, it's mixed media, so I wouldn't call it clean and simple, but trying not to add bling and all of those kind of things to it was really, that was more difficult actually than the actual mixed media part of it. Okay, so I'm really happy actually with the card front here, with my background. So I'm just going to clean this all off here. Okay. Clean that part off, and I'm going to put that to the side. So here's what we've got. Okay, so this looks like one hot ass mess, right? Like that's what it looks like. And that's okay. It's supposed to look like that, because now we're going to, that's just our base layer. So, which is technically 4 layers of color, right? So we've got a 4-layer card so far. And if you look, you can start to see how much depth is just built in with the color. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sprayer and I'm going to spray some in my hand, spray some water in my hand, and I'm going to let this leach out a little bit. I want some big drops. I want some little drops. And the Tim Holtz sprayer is really great at giving, if you don't depress it the full way, like if you spritz it like this, then you get a fine mist. But if you kind of gently move it down, you're going to actually get droplets. And that was why this particular sprayer was created. Okay, so I'm going to let that continue to bleach there for a minute, and then I'm going to bring in my dryer. You can see where I got a couple of really big splotches, which is kind of cool. And it's drawing some of that color out, which is what I want, right? Obviously, that's what I want. So I'm just going to come in with my cloth here. You can start to see. So I'm going to lift that color. Watch these big splotches there. Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay. So here's what we've got after some of the splotches, okay, with the water. Now, again, we're drying. I'm going to dry that layer. This is the most important step of what you're doing. So whatever you're adding to, you want to make sure that you are drying it in between each layer. Okay, so now I think probably try. I'm going to try changing the orientation, and I'm going to do that again. See if I can get some water splotches on there. Yep, that's working. Hang on there. Awesome. Give it a minute to bleach. Because actually what you can do is once you've got the water on there, you can even just use your dryer. Dry. You don't have to use paper towel or a cloth or anything to lift the water. You can actually just dry it right where it's at. Then it doesn't move around. You get the kind of interesting edges, almost like an alcohol ink. So again, that's a whole nother aspect of the distress oxides and inks that will allow for it. You get this really cool cooling. And we're drying and we're drying. Okay. I think we're pretty good there. Okay. Let's flatten that out. Ooh, it's toasty. Okay. So now you can see, sorry, I get a little close to the camera there, but I've got some really cool splotches, textures. You can actually see where some of the watermarks and everything are here. Over here, a little bit there. So again, I don't know how much of it is translating through the camera. There, that might be a little bit better. But yeah, you can start to see how many layers are coming out. Okay. Now what I want to do is I am going to take some VersaFine Clair inks. So these are permanent inks that can be used. So these are pigment inks. These can be used with watercolor because I'm going to be adding some more things to this. But what I want is I want to be able to stamp on this. I want to add some texture. So the way that I plan to do that is I have these couple of stamps. So I've got this one. This one's actually one of the Lavinia stamps, and it's got sentiments. The one that I used on the card that I showed in the what do you call it, in the organization video that I did, had said brother, and it had some words and things like that on it. This one's like believe in the magic, mythical elves, casting spells, music and laughter, etc. So what I'm going to do is just kind of stamp this in a couple of different places. And I don't need to have the whole sentiment coming across like that. Okay. So I'm just going to stamp that in a couple of different places because I just want the writing. I want it to look scripty off of the edge. So any script or writing sentiment, stamp, whatever, something like that would work. Even if you only have like a single, like one of those shorter sentiments that goes like, let's say you have a big thanks die and it says thank you, and then a little one that says so much, but it's written. So you could just go so much, so much, 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 much. You could stamp that all over the place or do a few of those together, right? The other one that I want to use is this bold cling stamp, which has this really cool dotted pattern. Now I could do that all over, but that's not what I want. I actually want to do just in certain places. I want these dots to be on them. Okay. So I'm just going to come in, I'm going to ink up my stamp. And because I want it to be quite fluid, I'm not going to put it on a block or anything like that. I'm just going to go in and I'm going to stamp in certain areas, just kind of rolling it along, adding that extra layer of texture. Here, that. Maybe in there. Like that. Okay, so I'm not adding like a full coverage. I don't want a full coverage. I want it to be sparse isn't quite the right word, but I want it hit and miss on there. Okay? So I'm just gonna put down a bit of a white. Now I'm going to show you the same thing using this. So the first color that I used for the VersaFine Clair was pine cone. So it's a very deep dark brown. So the acorn, this one here, is the one that I'm going to use for my script, which is why I put the deeper one below, because I want this to kind of be elevated a little bit, or not elevated, but visible a little bit. Okay, look at it. So that's going to be really soft. It's very small writing, which is what I wanted. Oh, I inked up the wrong end. And again, none of this needs to be perfect. We're just trying to get a little bit of an edge in there. And here. Could even be upside down. Doesn't have to be, again, it doesn't have to be perfect because it's not, we're not actually aiming for it to be legible. Okay. Because our next step is now, so I'm now finished with those. Okay. So the next step is I'm going to dry that so that it doesn't get smudged, because it could still get smudged when I go to put it. Which one is which one? There we go. Believe in the magic. Read it the backwards way here. Okay, let's get my thing on. So. Okay, now what I want to do is I'm going to dry that because again, it was a pigment ink. So pigment inks are made to sit on top of the paper. They don't sink into the paper. So I just want to give it a quick dry because now I'm going to put this through an embossing folder to again give another layer of texture. So look, I'm going to bring this up to the camera so that you can kind of have a look. Look at the texture. So we've got the background dots. So we've got the layers of color, 4 layers of color, plus some that we bleached, right, using the water droplets. And now we've got these polka dots. So that's another layer of texture that's been added. Plus now we have the script that you can sort of see in and around there. Okay, so that puts 4, 5, 6, 7 layers of texture, right? Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do is bring in, this is the circle rings from Simon Says Stamp. Okay. And I'm just going to add it into my embossing folder. So, and you do want to, this technique works best, I believe. Actually, before I do that, I want to trim this down so that I don't lose any of the. So when I start usually with a background, I like to start with sometimes, particularly if I'm creating a full background kind of thing, I'll start with something that's a little bigger than an A2 size. I didn't even measure this when it went in, but this is 4, so that works fine. 4 by a little more than 5.5. So what I want to do, because I want to put a matting layer on here, is I want this to be so I'm going to do an A2. So I need it to be 4.25 by 5.5 is going to be the card. So I want this to be 5. So I can go in, take 1/4 inch off of this side. 1/4 inch off this side. So I'm going to take just 1/8 of an inch off of each of these sides to bring it down to 3 3/4 of an inch. Okay, so that's going to be my panel front. Actually, I might need that for when we do the mounting layers. So now I can add this into my embossing folder. And as I was saying, with the embossing folder, you really want it to be something that is like geometric, kind of. It can be large or small, but the ones this technique works best with something that is geometric. Okay, so I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. So I have a Gemini Junior. There we go. Probably do that even again. I think I need to put a, I think I need to put a shim with that. This with this probably. See if that will work. Better. There we go. So you have to make sure that you're trying whatever your embossing folders work with your die cutting machine. Make sure that you're practicing playing with that, seeing which shim, what works, what doesn't work. Oh yes, much better. Okay. There we go. Okay, so now I have added my dimension from my embossing folder. How cool is that? All right, so now everything is starting to sink into the background. This has popped up, right? You can see the dimension, but let's bring out that dimension. And I'm going to do that using walnut stain, Distress ink, because I want it to sink into the tops of my paper, okay, or my cardstock. So I'm going to bring this in and I'm just going to buff it a little bit over the top. It's not necessarily gonna, I don't have to catch it perfectly again, because again, it's mixed media, so nothing is perfect in this. You want distressed, you want like almost steampunky, you want, yeah, that's what you're looking for. Okay, put that up before I get my fingers in it. Card. Okay, now look at, okay, so now we're at, so what do we have? 4 layers of ink. We had plus the water splotches, plus we had the pin stamp, then we had the layer of the script stamp, Then we had the embossing folder, so that's 8 layers. Now we've highlighted the extra layer, so that's 9 layers technically now on this card of dimension. Okay. Do you think we're done there? Heck no, why would we be done there? Because now we want to add, well, I want to add, you might not want to add, but I'm going to add some splatter because I do need to have, I want it to have, again, some more depth and highlight. And the best way to do that at this stage is now I'm going to add a little bit of sparkle and shine, okay, because it's going to catch the light in differing areas. So that phantom mist is a little dark. So by doing that, how I'm going to do that is using Distress Mica stains. Okay, so I'm just giving them a shake to make sure that the balls are moving on the bottom of them. That means then that all of the mica is now moving about. And I'm just going to pull this out and I'm just going to give it a tap and let it fall where it will. I like this kind of goldy color, which I'm using because I've got brown in the background, right? So I can close that up tight. And then I've got, this is Iron Gate. So the first one here was Crooked Broomstick. This one is going to be Iron Gate, which is kind of a silvery, like almost like a pewter color. And this is, again, this is a technique where it's not going to give you a lot of control per se. Now I'm going to do Shiny Bauble. So it's kind of this turquoisey blue, and then this blue Winter Frost. And I love these, actually, these bottles. I mean, sometimes they're a bit of a pain, but for splattering with these things, the way that the crook is on this, on the bottom of the nozzle, the sprayer thingy, works actually really great for um, dabbing to get a bit of a splatter. So it's moving. This is a really light color, so I'm going to add lots of the turquoise because it's also going to sink in. But what happens is this is a the mica that is in these spray stains is dyed the same color. So the mica is also this turquoise color. So it's going to, even if it absorbs into the paper, which it will because it's a water-based product, it will still show that really great color of the mica. Okay, so now I'm just going to dry this because, of course, we dry between the layers. I could have dried with each of the spritzes, but I don't necessarily feel like I needed to. And I'm getting one here where the Iron Gate and the Wicked Broomstick have kind of, so the silver and the goldish color have kind of melded a little bit here. It's kind of cool, this big smooch. Okay, so this is our 10th layer, basically, right? All right. Up there. Okay. So cool. Look at that. So you get just a little bit of the mica, like the color is still there. And you get a little bit of that shine. So by anytime that you highlight something, you push what it does. So when the light hits all of these little pieces of mica, what it does is it brings that part to the front, and then the tones or whatever is behind it pushes it back, right? So when we're coloring and you're adding a light tone, that brings it to the top. That's how you create the effect on a 2D image. That's how you create the effect of dimension. Is you make something lighter and then something darker, and anything that's darker will be pushed to the back and the lighter will be brought up to the front, which is why you want to add these beautiful little spritzes, because all of those places where that little glitz and shine catches the light comes to the front, so it creates a faux dimension. That's how you do that with a 2D image, is that's how you create that. So I'm actually going to leave that at that point. So I'm going to map this, create the card so that you guys can kind of see the finished product. Let me see here. We have I think this is that one. Yes, it is. So brown. Let's do that. And card blank. Card blank. Card blank. That's the envelope. Where are the white card blanks? There it is. Right there. All right. Okay. I have my card blank. Let's trim these down. So I want, this one is going to be even smaller. So these are going to have almost like an 1/8 of an inch edge to them. So we need it to be, so 1 1/4. So I want this to be right there. I'm going to have a very small white border, very, very, very small edge. Now this one we can trim down to 4. Yeah, because this is not 4, right? That is, oh, maybe I gave myself more space for that. Me pre-planning and doing things that I didn't think I was doing. That's funny. How much space? Yeah, that works good. Okay, put that aside. Let's glue these things down. Okay, so first one that I want to do is I'm going to glue my panel here to the back of this turquoise piece. So I'm just using my precision glue press. This thing is awesome because I'm, again, like I said, I'm starting to get really frustrated with my tape runner because they don't carry it anymore and it's gotten markedly expensive and I refuse to go and buy another one. So now I am using more liquid adhesive. Okay, so theoretically I should be able to have 1/8 of an inch around the whole way here. So let's see if I can get this mostly straight. I must have cut that and that's pretty fun, isn't it? Okay. So I've got a bit of extra in the top here. So I'm going to lock that off because it's a little even for me, which is fine. But I'm just going to take just a scope off. There we go. That's better. And now I'm going to put that down, making sure it's adhered. And now I'm going to bring this in. Yes. Go onto here. Does that look like it? Yeah. Right, and read that. Not that I can read it. So I could put this upside down like the script because it's pretty, it's covered, so it doesn't much matter like what it says. You're not going to see a ton of it. And I'm going to put this down. So let's do that. This one I gave a very small border to, very, very small. And that I can trim down if I need to as well. It's fine. Just go, yeah, trim that down just a little bit. Okay. So now that looks pretty even all the way over. And I have already cut out and did, if you watched my last organization video, I showed you guys this die and how cool it was. I'm really happy with it. But that is the die that I'm going to use. So I can do this. And then if I had another colored image, I could put that on there too. But I think I'm just going to keep it really simple and just do happy birthday. I think I'm just going to put that right in the center of there. This will be a really nice guy card. I don't make enough masculine cards. But basically this die had a couple of different layers. So there's a shadow layer. There's 2 shadow layers actually. So the first shadow layer I did in vellum so that I could see my paper behind it. So you can, some of that comes, that's straight. Okay. Yeah, so you can see kind of like the pattern and everything behind it, which is really cool. I really like that. And then it had a white layer, and then was able to cut out in the matching turquoise. So turquoise and then the brown. That was really cool. So let me just put a stamp on there. There we go. So that's going to be the card today. I'm just going to give it a second here for that glue to adhere. I'm going to play with another color combination, I think, of greens and yellows with a gray. I think that might be kind of fun too. I want to see what that looks like. I really love the patina because basically that's what this is when you're using kind of like the turquoise and then coppers, browns, that kind of thing. It makes it look like an aged copper, right? And there we go. That's going to be the card today. The only other thing that I might go in and do is I might go in and outline like the happy and then the birthday, just this part here with glossy accents, just kind of make that pop. So all told, so on our card base, we had 10 layers of faux or actual real, because we used an embossing folder as well, but faux layers, right, to create the depth and dimension. There are three layers on my sentiment. So that's 13. And then I also matted it twice. So that's 15 layers on what is very thin card. But look at, yeah, I'm really happy with how that turned out. My friend would be really happy with that too. This would be a card I would give to her. I'd put a little more bling on it, but this would be a card that I would definitely feel like I could give her. If you have any questions, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have any questions, please do put them down in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Please remember to keep it kind. I will see you guys in the next video. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.